Hello and welcome to today's video. Today I'm filming a little review of a product from a brand I really enjoy, and that is Tom's Studio. And today we are looking at the Wren. This is the metal version of the Wren. There is a new version called the Write-Off, which I will talk about a little bit later in the video. But this version is one that I've been using actually for close to a couple of months now, and I think there is a heck of a lot going for this pen. So this is how it comes packaged. It's beautifully, simply packaged in cardboard with a beautiful print on the front. Another sort of cardboard box sits underneath. We lift the lid off here and it sits in here. And this is the Wren. It is a very small pen. It is a pocketable pen. It's designed to be portable and usable. And if we open up it says lift to reveal. And it comes with a little bit of information and then a 3ml sample of the ink. Let's talk about this wonderful little pen and give a few sort of insights as to what it's about, talk about parts and features, do a writing sample and talk about some pros and cons. Now, I will say right here at the start, if you are interested in the Wren or any of the writing instruments or anything from Tom's Studio, I do have a discount link available, which I'll link to in the video description here. So get yourself a product at a nice little discount and help support this channel and keep it going for me. So this is the pen, so let's talk about it. So as I said, it is small and pocketable. The top is a nice sort of octagonal shape here, and it's completely flat, and it's got nice sort of crisp edges onto the barrel, which transitions from that beautifully faceted face there into a more sort of round opening sort of at the base here. There's a little hole there, which is a breather hole to stop suction as you cap and uncap the pen. And there's a little step down onto the little knob of the main body of the pen, and then the end there, which is slightly dimpled in there. Now you uncap the pen by just pulling that out, and you've got a couple of O-rings, and then the body sort of tapers down to the main part of the barrel, and that tapers further to this fiber tip. This is a really nice fiber tip. Firstly, it's a Japanese made fiber tip. It writes with about a line between 0.3 to 0.5 of a millimeter, depending on the pressure you put in. It's a really reliable tip to write with. It's not so wet to bleed through a whole lot of things, yet it's wet enough to give you a great satisfaction with the color of ink you're using. It's really lovely. So you post that onto the back there, and then you have a nicely sized pen. Not a big pen, but very comfortable in the hand. It's got a nice sort of diameter, and the weight of it's really nice as well. Now, I mentioned there was another version, and that is the Write-Off version. Now, Tom's Studio is really focused on sustainability. So what they've done is they have collected pen bodies and whiteboard marker bodies, all those kinds of things, and recycled the plastic and made it into basically like, I suppose, a version of injection molded caps for the Wren. So you still get the same metal body, and it is an anodized aluminium body, and it's beautiful. And then you can get like a matching or contrasting plastic cap with like swirls of colors and all those kinds of things. And it really plays into Tom's Studio's dedication to the environment and, as I said, sustainability within the pen industry. So many pens get wasted. And between the fountain pens and the Wren and the Lumos and all these kinds of things, having a really affordably made and refillable pen is so high in the list of priorities for Tom's Studio. I really applaud that. So this is the midnight version, and I've got the midnight body and the midnight lid. Now you can mix and match the colors. These anodized aluminum body parts are, you can, when you buy it online, you select which color you want for both. I loved the look of this matte finish, or this sort of slightly sort of satiny kind of finish of the midnight. Some of the midnight and the black have this kind of finish, whereas the other colors have a little bit sort of more micro grooves. Like I'll just look, here is the pocket fountain pen. Which you can see, these pens are insanely related. Obviously the same brand and all that. But this has little micro grooves. I don't know if you better actually see them, but up and down the body, which helps with the grip. This other matte finish on the midnight provides that on its own, and it's really lovely. So just so you can see how it's all done. Now I've made videos about filling it and all that kind of stuff, which you can find in shorts and things on my channel. But you unscrew this and there's a little, once this comes off, you can see here this sort of like ink reservoir, as they call it. It's kind of like a wicking system. And I'll show you with the fresh ones here. Basically, the tip goes into the pen, into the cone of the pen, you know, in there. And then this ends up going into the ink reservoir. And then as you dip this into the ink, it sucks ink up into the ink reservoir and through to the fiber tip. It's a really lovely system, and all those parts are easily replaced and purchased. In fact, you can store them, once they're dry, you can store them and reuse them multiple times, either with the same ink, or if you're game or don't mind sort of like a little bit of sort of a mix of colors, interchanging the inks. So that is the basics of the Wren. I think this is a fantastic little pen, and I'm not the only one who thinks this. It's been insanely popular. In fact, it won the Writing Instrument of the Year for 2025 at the London Stationery Awards. I think it's to do with like the London Pen Show or something. So, you know, lots of people are applauding what Tom Studio is doing here. And I think it's actually also really, really reasonably priced. Let's do a little bit of chat about the price. So this retails for about 75 Australian dollars. It's about 35 pounds, which I think is a pretty decent price. For that, you get the pen, the tip, the 3ml bottle of ink, and the ink reservoir. And you can buy more tips and more reservoirs. I bought extras of them all. The tips, 3 of these, for £2.95, and then the ink reservoirs are 5 for £1.95. All these prices are as I film this today. So, you know, really affordable, and the fact that they're so readily available through the Tom Studio website means that, you know, you're never going to be caught short. Okay, for the size comparison today, I've got a few things I want to show it alongside. Firstly, there, of course, is the Lamy Safari, my traditional for scale. That is the Tom Studio Pocket fountain pen. I also want to show it here alongside the Wingback stainless steel fountain pen, which has been part of my everyday carry setup for the last little while. And then a Fisher Space bullet pen. So you can see this is a very short pen. Now, just for the sake of the exercise, I'm going to swap out the Lamy Safari here for the Kaweco Sport. This is one of the pocket pens in the fountain pen world that most people will be familiar with. Now, you can see it is shorter than all of those. It follows a similar sort of a function and design aesthetic with the pocket fountain pen, but much smaller. Now, uncapped and unposted, I think you would struggle to write with any of these. They're all very short, but especially the Wren there. When they're posted into their writing forms, you see the fountain pen from Tom Studio is quite long, but the Wren is not that much shorter really than, say, a bullet pen from Fisher Space or the Kaweco Sport. It's a nice, comfortable size. And when we look at it alongside a Lamy Safari uncapped here, you can see it's a really nice, comfortable size. Of course, the Safari posts a lot longer, as long as the pocket pen there from Tom Studio. So before we do a writing sample, let's talk about the specific dimensions here. So this is 80 millimeters when it's posted. So it fits very nicely in your pocket, in your handbag. You know, it's not much bigger than a standard, well, lip balm or something like that. It's a nice compact size. Then when it's posted, it's 120 millimeters. So it is on the shorter side. This will be a little bit short for some people, but take into account this is designed as an everyday writer. It can be used for anything. You could use it for drawing, you could use it for long journaling sessions if you wish, if it's comfortable. But for pocketability, carrying around, pulling it out, writing, it's a nice little size. In terms of width, around the cap is about 13 millimeters, and just beyond the nose cone where you would hold it is just under 10 millimeters. The entire pen weighs 20 grams. So it's robust, and that is, I should say, in the metal version. I'm not sure. I think the plastic version is maybe 17 grams, something like that. I'm hoping to get one of those, and I'll do a review and comparison of that. But at 20 grams, it's a nice sort of comfortable weight, and it's nicely balanced into your fingers. So let's do the writing sample. I have Clairefontaine 90 GSM paper here. And this is the Tom's Studio Wren, or the Wren. This is a fiber tipped pen. And as I said, it uses a Japanese fiber tip made in Japan, and it is designed to be used with fountain pen ink. The ink I have in this is Tom's Studio Midnight, which of course is a great partner to this pen. This is what comes in that 3 milliliter sample, but I also bought a bottle of this ink. This is a 50 ml bottle. It's a really great bottle. I think this ink is really nice. It's perfect for this pen. It's a special formulation for the fiber tip pen. You can use any fountain pen ink in it, but this one is specially formulated for that fiber tip. Okay, let's do some writing. So it doesn't write super wet. And one thing I have noticed is that when you start writing after a short, if you've not written with it for like a couple of days, it'll write quite dark. And then within a few lines, as that tip sort of, the saturation sort of evens out in the tip, you will get slightly lighter writing. As I said, not super wet, but that's kind of the point also. You're not always going to be writing on beautiful Clairefontaine paper. In fact, on this paper, the pen is insanely smooth. You know, it's a really lovely tip on this paper. On more toothy papers, something I'm thinking like Baron Fig, which is paper that I really, really love, which is slightly toothier, this does feel a little less easy on the page, shall we say. And of course, being the fact that these tips do eventually wear out, which is why they've made them available for individual purchase, the smoother the paper you write on, the less wear and tear you might get. Also, if you write with nice, light, even pressure, you're going to get less wear and tear on that tip as well. As I said, depending on the pressure you put or the angle you write, the line can range from about a 0.3 to something around like a 0.5. And that was just me changing the angle from upright to sort of more flat, you know, and you can play around with that. It's great for sketching because of that, you know, like a nice crisp upline, you know, sort of for finer lines and things like that. Really great. Obviously, fiber tips do not flex, but that is the kind of variation you're going to get by nature of how you hold the pen. It's, as I said, not the wettest. There's no such thing as, you know, reverse writing or anything like that. Fast writing, there is no issue. Ink starvation is never really an issue with these kinds of pens, simply because, you know, you're working on a wicking system. So as long as there's ink, it's going to feed down through that fiber tip, which is great. And it makes it reliable. And if you don't let it dry out, and I should say, I have left this occasionally for, you know, a couple of weeks, and it wrote first time without a hesitation. So I think it's a really solidly made, well thought out pen that uses a nice tip that makes her a really interesting everyday writer. So let's talk pros and cons. I don't really have a whole lot of cons here. Simply because it does everything it's designed to do. The only thing I will say is on toothier papers, as I said, like Baron Fig and things like that, or some art papers, you will feel a little bit more drag from that fiber tip. It's not always super pleasant. If you're writing on Clairefontaine or Tomo River or Rhodey or things like that, brilliant. Anything that's slightly toothier, you are going to feel that tip just a little bit more. And also, as I said, after writing for a little bit, the saturation of the tip does even out, and you just get a slightly drier writing experience and not quite as saturated. So keep that in mind with the ink you decide to use in this pen. Lighter inks will appear quite light. Dark inks will appear lighter than say in a fountain pen, but still absolutely legible. The only other thing I have, and this is personal, is that I've never really been a fan of O-rings. And it's across the board. Every brand that uses them, I think, you know, I understand they serve a purpose, but, you know, they are a part that can break, you know, and getting the right size or getting them back from the company, it's just one of those things that we had to accept with fountain pens and with pens like this, because it works perfectly as how it functions. It posts and caps beautifully with those O-rings. But if they fail, then, you know, there's something that has to be replaced as well. But so many pros. As I said, I left this for 2 weeks. It wrote first time, every time. It's super, super reliable. I think the size and the portability of this, like it disappears in your hand, it disappears in your pocket, but that little bit of weight lets you know it's there. I carry this in the little zip pouch of my little sling bag, and it just sits in there, and when I need to write something on the train or wherever I am, it's super easy to grab it, write with it. I know it will work. I really, really love the new write-off version. As I said, I am planning on hopefully getting my hands on one of those to show you here, but also to do a comparison with this. I think it's worth showing. And anything that can help the sustainability of, well, in general sustainability, but the sustainability of the pen world. Recycling pens, there's a few brands that do similar sorts of things, and I'm all for it. I also like the fact that you can replace the tips in the reservoir, meaning that, you know, you don't have to throw away anything, well, other than these ones, they sort of wear out, but that's much better than having to throw away pens sort of constantly, and those are refillable and reusable. I like the fact that you can use just about any fountain pen ink with this pen. Yes, Midnight has a special formulation designed specifically for this kind of tip, but except for, you know, shimmering inks or drawing inks, calligraphy inks, those kinds of things, any ink that has a super experimental property, so maybe the high sheening inks, those kinds of things, if it's a standard fountain pen ink, you can use it in here. I had another, I don't know if I can find it, just give me 1 second. Here is a reservoir I have already used. You can see alongside the new one, it's you know, it's been used and cleaned. In this one, I had Diamine 1864 Blue Black, and you know, while it is sort of slightly coloured, you know, it's come up really, really well. So I used a nice sort of standard fountain pen ink in here, and it wrote absolutely beautifully as well. And lastly, I think the design is really cool. I love how it goes from this octagonal shape through to the round, how all the tolerances are just absolutely beautifully done. There's no sharp edges. There's no, you know, sort of you know, little lips on anything. It just is made beautifully. It's constructed well. It does everything it's supposed to do. Simple, clean, effective, and just fun to use. And it's also one of those little pens that, you know, if you do use it in public, and I don't use pens for this, but it is always nice when someone asks about the pen, because then you get a chance to talk about pens, and who doesn't like talking about pens? So this is one of those pens that does get a little bit of attention like that. So this was the Wren from Tom's Studio, their beautiful little fiber tip pocket pen. I hope you found this video interesting and useful. Please like and subscribe, hit the notifications button, all that kind of stuff. As I said, I have a link that I will put into the video description here where you can get a nice little discount on a range of the Tom's Studio products, and that also helps support my channel, and I really appreciate that. I'm hoping to look at, you know, the write-off as well as the Lumos and things like that from Tom's Studio. This is a brand I think that is doing fantastic things. They're all beautifully made, so a big thank you to them for their support as well. So enjoy your pens, enjoy writing, and I'll talk to you soon.